Hi, this is Sunil Bhartia and welcome to TFR Insights. And today we are going to talk about VMware's acquisition of Octarine, a company that provides continuous security and compliance for complete lifecycle of Kubernetes application. And to discuss this acquisition, we have with us Tom Korn, Senior Vice President in VMware's Security Business Unit. How critical or important is security for VMware and why?
It's a hugely strategic area for us, and not simply because of the potential growth area. It's obviously a large growing market and a very relevant adjacency for us, but also the fundamental value of the virtual and cloud fabric is changing. Where it once was mostly about how you optimize hardware or abstract hardware, the future value of that fabric is going to be in how it simplifies management and security. So for us, this is an enormous strategic area. We've made obviously some very, very significant investments in it. And today it represents over $1 billion of our revenue coming from security. So this is a very serious effort for us.
And why did you acquire Octarine? What unique value does Octarine bring not only to VMware's security business unit, but also to the ecosystem as well?
Yeah, I guess to put it in context, it might be worth taking a step back and saying what's sort of the overall security vision, and then it starts to make sense why Octarine is so pivotal for it. In any security strategy, I think it's well worth saying what is it that's really unique and compelling that we can add to the industry. And I think one of the things that the industry is, the three things in our view that the industry has fallen short on, is that security has been, number one, very, very siloed, right? The DevOps teams, the network teams, the IT teams, and the security teams are each operating on their own tool set and, more importantly, their own versions of truth. There's an old expression that says everyone can have their own opinions, but you can't have your own facts. And that's really hurting us in security. Another thing is that in general, security is done well at surfacing threat context, but very poorly in terms of surfacing application and infrastructure context. And in the cloud, IP addresses are not particularly meaningful. What's meaningful is that what microservice is that container part of it, and what application does that microservice serve, and what is its purpose? So context has been a real shortcoming. And then lastly, it's been a very bolted on industry, right? We build our applications and then we say, go secure them. And that's a very difficult thing to do if you're really going to make big steps forward in security. We need applications that are born secure. We need applications that are born instrumented for security. So, that is a sort of a unique opportunity for a company who's really trying to become the fabric of the cloud and the fabric of applications and the fabric of mobility. What our efforts have, I think, given us an opportunity, whether it's virtualization or network and compute and storage virtualization, or whether it's been on the mobile side with Workspace ONE, and obviously, as you were pointing out more recently with Tanzu and the properties we've done through the acquisitions of Pivotal and Heptio, et cetera, which are really helping us build a modern fabric for building and managing and running applications. From a security perspective, it's given us, I would argue, all the right camera angles around these applications to understand them and have the right enforcement points, right? What containers compose this application? How do they communicate with each other across the network? What other services do they consume? Which users are connecting to this application? Which devices are they using to connect to it? And so what we have been building, obviously with Carbon Black, and then in our other areas like Tanzu and NSX and Workspace ONE, is trying to build security trying to build the connective tissue so that security teams and IT teams and DevOps teams have one version of truth, that they can collaborate better, that we can operationalize security through IT and through development. Now, that's the overall sort of view of it. And within Carbon Black in particular, the idea, and we of course did that acquisition last year, and that was probably one of our most significant security acquisitions. That's what really gave us a platform for security and for security teams. And, in general, from a security perspective, there's really three things you're trying to solve. Giving visibility so you can understand the attack surface, the risk, so that you can harden the environment and get rid of as much attack surface as you can. What that doesn't solve, you need to prevent. So the abilities to detect attacks, to detect malicious and suspicious activity, and prevent as much of that as possible. And what that can't solve, the ability to detect, investigate, and respond, and having things that all connect with each other. And the problems is, the way that it had been solved before is 20 different tools all bolted on, not really connected together. And so what Carbon Black had created really was a platform that thought of these things not as a dozen different products, but as connected use cases. And to bring these to bear using the cloud so that we could have instrumentation in the applications, the endpoints, the workloads that bring this information to the cloud so that we can bring to bear much richer analytics, machine learning, AI to those problems, and to be able to solve it in a consistent way across the fabric. Now, Carbon Black had been doing this with endpoints, with traditional workloads, with workloads on AWS and Azure, etc. Obviously, a very logical place to start bringing this type of thinking is into containers. And in containers, there's a very unique set of opportunities in security because they tend to be more declarative and are intended to be immutable. And our ability to start tapping into understanding the containers back right all the way to the point where they're being developed with the DevOps teams, and to use that to bring to bear our breadth of security capabilities, both to give visibility, to reduce attack surface, and to detect and respond. That was the key. And Octarine had really been deeply involved in the nuances of containers and Kubernetes across these problems. And our view was this is a great opportunity to bring this together and make this part of a common platform so people can think about this consistently.
To be able to offer that as a common platform, it needs a lot of integration also. So do you have kind of a roadmap to integrate all these technologies so that customers can leverage them? Can you talk about that?
Yes. So again, the work that we're going to start on immediately upon close is actually merging the Octarine platform into the Carbon Black platform. And then our intent is to be able to ship the new expanded platform by the end of the year. At that stage, we'll be able to bring the breadth of our capabilities, not just the capabilities Octarine had, but the breadth of the Carbon Black cloud capabilities to containers and into Kubernetes. So capabilities to have visibility and identify risk, capabilities to harden, capabilities to prevent, capabilities to detect and respond, and to be able to do that in a consistent manner. So a lot of the work is sort of bringing that type of integration. The second type of integration is integrations that we're planning with Tanzu, in particular Tanzu Mission Control. The idea there is, can we expose some of the context, the visibility, and the instrumentation to the DevOps platforms themselves so that the DevOps teams can make use of some of these tools. The DevOps teams can, the policies for securing it become a logical extension of the development cycle, right? You're already declaring what this container is be and supposed to do. How do we ensure that's what it stays, that in fact is immutable, that we actually take your declarations of it? And then how do we make sure that we instrument the containers and the application for security? Doing this right will enable DevOps teams that security will become an outcome of the development life cycle. That DevSecOps becomes a way of security itself becoming more agile and not having a mixed model where development is agile and security is still in a waterfall mode.
I want to talk about DevSecOps. Before that, I want to talk quickly about the existing client and commitment that Octarine have with its own clientele.
So they have a series of customers, some with some fairly large deployments. But when we were looking for a player in this market, and we analyzed a lot of different technologies and companies of varying sizes out there. The top thing we were looking for was really a more forward-looking element of security. Most of the companies that have been playing in container security thus far have focused on the problem of scanning the containers going into the into production in order to make sure that they had the right ingredients, that the elements were correct. And the runtime security elements of it were fairly limited. They were more sort of whitelisting, defining policies for whitelisting. Our view is the scanning is important, but it's rapidly commoditizing and rapidly becoming sort of parts of the platforms themselves. What is gradually going to become a bigger issue and bigger value is runtime security, policy, compliance, detection, the full scale of it. And Octarine really, I think, had done a lot more newer thinking on that. And like I said, our intent is not to have sort of a separate platform, but rather bring this together and have a sort of very compelling platform for security that can handle containers, its traditional workloads, its cloud workloads, and even its end user devices, so they can see things in a consistent manner.
Now I want to talk about DevSecOps. Initially, it's not exclusive to cloud native world, but security was often seen as an afterthought. No developer started application with security in mind when they start building it. But there has been a lot of awareness. Even in last KubeCon, there were a lot of sessions around security in the cloud native world. So I just want to talk to you about what kind of trends are you seeing in this space, especially in the post-COVID-19 world, where a lot of workloads, a lot of businesses will move to the cloud. A lot of operations will become constantly, and securing those workloads will become critical. So, what trends will we see in 2020 in the context of security?
Yeah, and perhaps let's separate the COVID-19, because I think that's an interesting question, and I'll answer that second. And the first one is, obviously there's been a lot said about DevSecOps. I think maybe something I haven't heard as much of is this notion that security, and particularly security operations, has really traditionally operated in a waterfall mode, whereas DevOps has obviously, by definition, is operated in Agile. And a great way of thinking about that is, I've built products here at VMware where, as we're about to go live and deliver, as we finish the development process, we get our security architects involved from our InfoSec team, and they do a thorough review of our architecture, how we've constructed this, the controls that are in place. And that can be a 2-month process. Okay, now I am releasing product every Tuesday. I can't do a 2-month review every Tuesday. So what ends up happening is you're either slowing down the application teams, which is actually rarely the choice, or security is moving, the SOC is moving to a much more abstracted, coarse-grained view of security. I'll watch the north-south traffic coming from your application. I'll assume inside is secure. It's really missing a tremendous opportunity to use the cloud and the agility to really improve the way security is done. But to do that, the SOC needs to be able to function in a DevOps approach, just like the DevOps team, the application teams are doing so. Now, some of that is by enabling the DevOps teams to operationalize more of security. And in my mind, that's part of DevSecOps. But the other is allowing the SOC to get its instrumentation and its control points almost at the birth of the application by default. This is not about slowing down dev teams and making them security experts. This is about taking the fact that container-based applications are by definition declarative and are designed to be immutable objects, and using that to our advantage to dramatically reduce the attack surface and have the context that the SOC will need later to react, detect, respond to attacks. Now, your question about COVID-19 is an interesting one. We've had a few observations. One, clearly, as this has certainly brought a bigger emphasis on endpoint and workload and container security, in part because, first of all, from an endpoint perspective, a lot of organizations put increased emphasis on network security. And some of that is less relevant in a work from home scenario because they're not necessarily on your network, they're on their home network. And even VPNs, with everyone using Zoom and all this video content, you're split tunneling your VPNs, and all of a sudden you've lost a lot of visibility. So there's been a huge emphasis on that. There's been a big emphasis on the fact that because the security teams are also working from home, it's not easy to roll out big new security components that involve really getting your hands on in the data center. And so I think that is yet another thing that is making SaaS-based security solutions, cloud-based security solutions, of interest. And I think the kind of agility that DevOps and container-based applications in general have addressing are becoming even more relevant today. Organizations have to be incredibly agile. The landscape is changing, how their customers are interacting, the way and as a result, the requirements for their applications are changing. And it's, I think, only emphasizing this need for agility in the applications, speed and agility in the applications you're doing. I think that's going to be very positive for container-based applications and this whole movement. I think that's going to accelerate the desire to move a greater section of one's applications to a cloud-native approach. And then I think it's also going to raise the question of, let's make sure we're really thinking through how we're securing this. That'll become top of mind.